We've got
I'm into it.
Nicholas calling from the Show Me State of Missouri. Wants to talk about faith. Nicholas, what's going on? How can we help?
Hey, Nicholas.
Hello. How are you doing? My
Good.
name.
I'm awesome, man. How are you?
Nicholas. I'm doing excellent. Just getting out of church, actually. I'm Catholic, and I just wanted to talk about the utility of faith and, my testimony in that regard.
Okay.
So there's the question that I received when I was watching a Jordan Peterson video the other day was talking about proof of God. I can't prove God. You have to believe or disbelieve, and then there's an internal logic that comes from that. But there are obvious benefits that come from belief in, for instance, the placebo effect. I'm sure you guys are familiar with. If one believes one is bound to get better, then the odds of them getting better it's statistically provable that one is more likely to get better. So your attitude does indeed affect your real reality. And my belief in Jesus Christ has freed me from fear of death. So I live in run, rabbit, run, the kind of Pink Floyd kind of element. I'm free of that. I live, I kind of circle back to a nothing matters, but everything matters. You reach that existential point where you either have to decide. Well, I'm getting off topic. The point is I have received significant benefits in my life by believing, and I want to share those with people, and it makes me happy, and
So here's
sorry, go ahead.
So here's where my pushback would be, and thank you for calling in, and I want to push back respectfully here, because I would not argue ever that belief is a powerful thing, that belief is certainly a useful thing. So my question, though, to people is it tends to almost always circle back to, how much do you care about whether or not your beliefs are true?
Pretty significant. The truth of the matter is a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal.
So
I wouldn't want to believe in something that's a lie.
If people can believe different things about different mutually exclusive gods, different afterlives, I mean, people can believe all kinds of different things religiously and feel like those things have created a positive effect in their lives. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens, though, say somebody believes that the best thing that they could do with their time would be to make sure that, like, women couldn't get access to healthcare, or that children should not be taught science in schools, or that going into a crowded marketplace and blowing themselves up is going to make God super duper happy and give their life lots of meaning and purpose. I mean, does it matter? And here, the argument that I'm about to make with you is that there's sort of a cumulative effect to believing things for utilitarian reasons, not because they're true, that can get our species in trouble. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're getting at, where, a wholehearted belief in something that is false. The truth or falsehood of the belief is manifest by the fruits of what ends up happening. If I end up saying something that's true that ends up pissing off people, that in the right way, that makes them challenge their ideas, that makes them think about what's happening, and is in a loving manner, then I am doing something that's good. I think that truth is objective. Like, there is truth and there is not truth. I think that science is a method by which one can discover God's plan, but if one isn't looking for God's plan in the first place, you wouldn't know what to find. If you don't have a serious idea of God in your head, then you aren't really struggling with the idea. If you can't suspend your disbelief long enough to have an idea of God, then you don't actualize it. You understand? There's not
That last part, you lost me.
You're dismissing it.
Yeah, you've said three distinct things that I have issue with. And like the first thing, you said that this belief is useful to you, that it's freed you from your fear of death. And therefore it has some, because it's useful, it must be true or good in some way. And I don't buy into that. I think that's what Kenneth was just getting at, is that you can believe not true things that are useful, but then also not true, or you can believe horrible things and still have effects from them. That was the second thing that you said just a minute ago. You said that the results of your belief speak to how true it is. That no, I very much disagree. Yes, you can believe something that isn't true and still act on those not true beliefs and still have results from it, and it's still not a true thing. And now, like, I think the key here is at the very beginning, you referenced the placebo effect. And I think you hit the nail on the head right there. A placebo is something that isn't real. It's a sugar pill. It doesn't have what you think it has, right? A placebo is a lie.
No.
Yes.
Not real and not provable are two different things. I can't prove that the sun is going to come up tomorrow. No, I know that's a false argument. But how about I can't prove
I get where you're
whether or
coming
not
from.
I'm going to get better, but my faith that it will has given me something to hold on to, right? And
So what I would throw at you is, and this, what I would want to challenge you with, and this is not, I'm not just being a jerk here. This is the truth. I am very staunchly anti-theist, and my philosophy is different than a lot of other people. The schools of philosophy that I enjoy are different, and those things have also rid me of a fear of death. I do not fear death. And atheism is actually a part of that. So that was the first example you brought up. Does that make my belief that there isn't a God as justified as your belief that there is one, because utility is all we're talking about?
Well, I just want to. I think I missed your point. I think
my point is that if you're coming in to say that your belief in God is useful and that the functionality of it speaks to its truth, I'm telling you that I have other beliefs than you have, and that they are also functional and useful, and they make my life better. Does that mean that our conflicting beliefs are both true at the same time? Or does that mean that an idea can be useful?
Well,
on an equal epistemic footing.
There's an archetype of the highest good, right? There are levels to good. There's a good, better, and best, right? If you
so, do you think that your belief is more good than mine?
I believe that God is good, and I believe that I must shed my iniquity to be cast more like Him. I have to lose.
Okay, so now here's the last thing I would bring up. I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm sorry, Kenneth. I know I'm talking all over you.
No, go ahead.
That's the last thing that I would bring up here, is that what you just said, that God is good. I strongly disagree with you. I've read the literature, as it were, on your faith, and the God character presented by Christian religions, to me, in my opinion, is not good at all. It's horrible.
That's the thing.
And so, I don't want to just debate that with you. What I'm saying is that I think that what you're bringing here is this belief gives me a little bit of utility, but there's also all of this baggage that I would say is there. So why not cut the baggage and just have this one utility? Why not do the thing, if you're talking about avoiding your fear of death, without having to tack on a whole religion to it? Why is that necessary?
Because it's true. It's true. The facts are that God's morality is the basis of existence.
So okay, Nicholas, I need you to pause right there, because before you can say, hang on, because before you can start saying that there are certain properties of a God and that those properties are true, you would have to have some evidence that that God exists in the first place. Do you have that?
I mean, it's only anecdotal. I've lived a very crazy life. I've seen people healed in the name of Jesus, and I've seen stuff that seems literally impossible. And so I don't really have the convenience of disbelief at this point.
Okay.
I was atheist at 14. Yeah. I began practicing different religions in order to, like, in a scientific manner, try and disprove spirit and God. I very quickly found out I was wrong. I ended up in a very dark place. I experienced lots of dark forces and the casting out of demons and all of this other stuff.
So you're making so many claims. So here's the thing. I'm gonna start with one question and see if we can't make some sense together. So I'm gonna ask you, when is it time to believe a claim, any claim of any kind? When is it time to believe something?
When there is no possibility of one's knowledge, positive or negative, you have to have faith one way or the other.
So that's wrong, what you just said.
What?
So here, and it sounds like you might be falling into something like a Doyle's fallacy type of situation. So I don't know if you've ever heard, or if you've read like the Arthur Conan Doyle Sherlock Holmes stories. But there's this, so there's this idea. Our friend Matt over on the Atheist Experience coined this, that there's this idea that in those stories, that once Sherlock Holmes had ruled out all of the possibilities of things that couldn't be the case with respect to a mystery, that whatever remains must be true. Have you heard this?
Occam's razor kind of a thing?
No, not Occam's razor. Occam's razor is not multiplying entities unnecessarily. This is entirely different. So the idea being that once you've eliminated all things that couldn't be the case, that what's left must be true. And that is how the mysteries are solved in the Sherlock Holmes stories. But the thing is, the reason why it's a problem is that you can never know that you've ruled everything out. You can never rule out possible candidate explanations that you just aren't aware of. It's nonsense. So what you seem to be doing here is overcomplicating the issue. I'm going to say here, I'm of the opinion that the time to believe a claim is...
I would like to push back very quickly. There is a God or there is not a God. If there is a God, then I should be afraid of him because he has complete domain over me. I am at his mercy.
Wait. How do you know that?
To know a little bit.
No.
It's
you just did two things all at once. You just said if this thing exists, then it must be this one.
Please, you guys are talking
exactly
over me. Please, guys. If there is a God, if he's real, so just give me the presumption and the thought experiment. If God is real, then he has complete control over me. I am at his will, at his mercy. There is nothing I can do against God. I cannot win a war against it. There's nothing I can do. I am at his mercy. That is scary. And so if you have that presumption, then the next logical thing would be to get to try and know what this thing wants. Why is it there? You know, what
why on earth would we have that presumption? Okay. So I asked you the question about when is it time to believe something, because I was trying to get something on the table. So I'll just put it on the table. I think that the time to believe a claim is when there is sufficient evidence to justify belief in that claim. That's simple as that.
That's cowardice.
Cowardice?
Okay.
What are you talking about?
Hold on a second. Oh my God.
No. Let me tell you. If you don't think that you can be anything you want to be, the American dream, if you don't think that you can be better tomorrow, there's no evidence that you will be better tomorrow. You just believe it. And your belief...
That's bullshit, what you just said.
You're conflating so many things together.
What you just said is bullshit, and it's demonstrable bullshit. So I can look at my life and see that incremental progress is a thing that exists in reality. So the idea that I could potentially be better tomorrow at something than I am today is consistent with reality. There's no faith required. I don't have to believe anything on bad evidence. I can just look at how reality functions.
But in the inverse, if your life has been getting worse every single day, then you would logically conclude my life is going to get worse and will only get worse.
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't, because that would be a ridiculous fallacy. If my life had been getting worse, but I can look at reality and see that incremental positive change is possible, and I can see that there are people whose lives have been bad and then gotten better. Like I don't know what you're talking about. It sounds like you're I don't know what the case is that you're trying to make, and we are no closer to you demonstrating that it's reasonable to believe in this God of yours.
You keep conflating faith with expectations. I can have expectations on something because I can track a trajectory of what it's doing. That isn't the same as having blind faith in something. Like if I see a pattern, I can predict what's going to happen next in that pattern. That's different than just having a wild belief. And what Kenneth brought up a little while ago when he was talking about Arthur Conan Doyle, he was talking about deductive reasoning. There's a reason why in science we don't use deductive reasoning because, as Kenneth said, you can never possibly know that you ruled everything out. We use inductive reasoning. Rather than saying, here's what I'm trying to figure out, let's look for evidence for it, we say, here's the evidence, what does this point to? And what you're doing is deductive. You're saying, I think there's a God, so let's find the reasons to believe in it. If there is a God, then it must be all of these things, which are totally different claims. You would have to back up with totally different amounts of evidence. And then you're saying, well, if I think that my life's going to improve, or if I think the sun's going to rise tomorrow, if I think anything's going to happen, that's faith. And if I only believe evidence, that cowardice, because I don't have the strength, the will, the courage to believe in something by pure fantasy. You're mixing up so many different things to create a totally new set of rules that I guarantee you don't use for anything else in your life.
I do.
You in the rest of your life would use this set of rules that you use for your God?
You guys have had the table. You guys have had the table for quite a bit. Let me just get a little bit more out. And I just want to say, I have seen that atheists often are afraid of the unknown, and
this has nothing to do with whether a God exists.
I am a scientist. I am excited about the unknown. That's why I started studying science.
Got to poke.
Nicholas, why do you believe that this God exists?
Get a thought out. Why do I believe this God exists?
Yeah, let's deal with that.
My personal living has been, well, my testimony, when I was 6 years old, I gambled away my life to Satan. And I ran into many different children who were demonically inspired. And there was some really dark shit that I saw. And, birds of a feather flock together kind of a thing. I ran into all of these different kinds of people.
So many first of all.
Nicholas, you got to understand. Nicholas, everything you're saying right now sounds to me like just gibberish because you're talking about demons and you're talking about all this other crap that I don't have any reason to think that demons exist.
You can't suspend your disbelief to take me at face value.
No, Nicholas, really quick, just
no, I'm not, because I care about whether or not the things that I believe are true. So if you can show me, if you can explain to me why I should think that anything that you're saying makes any sense, then I'll be with you. It's really that simple. Like I said, I'll believe things when I have reasons.
I'm saying that there's beyond sense. There's beyond your understanding. I don't understand everything.
Nicholas, I have a closet right here in my office. In this closet in my office right here, just in front of me, that I can see with my eyes, the door's closed, but behind that door, there is a goblin named Roland, and he eats Subway sandwiches and he grants wishes. And sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes it's no, and sometimes it's not right now. If you open the door, he evaporates into another dimension, so you can't ever see him. But Roland the Closet Goblin is in there right now, waiting to grant your wishes. You have no evidence for this, but it's changed my life to believe this. I pray to Roland every day. Does this make it true? Are you willing to believe it? Is it cowardice for you to ask for evidence for my claims?
Yeah, suspend your disbelief, man.
Just believe it. It matters.
How deeply? Well, no. Well, you asked me the question. How deeply do you believe in Goblin? If I put you
1,000,000%.
in a situation, no, guys. If I put you in a situation where it's your life or it's Goblin, will you die for Goblin?
I would die for Roland the Closet Goblin in a heartbeat. Roland is my savior. He's my life. Does that make it true?
like
friend.
for people
That's
listening,
what
this is
that-
the deal.
that-
Like the degree to which you or anybody else is convinced of something has nothing to do with whether your belief is true.
That's
Do
what
you
I'm saying.
understand
I
that?
would die for Roland. Does that make it true?
True. That is true. Yeah, the degree to which one believes or does not believe does not necessarily make that true. That is correct.
Right.
Right.
So really quick, just
Yeah.
what is your best evidence for this God that you believe in?
If you think evidence is
need,
important,
we
which
don't
you
need
said
the
you don't.
entire like
My best-
Lifetime
yeah, my
original
best-
movie
my
about your
best
6-year-old demon experiences.
Well,
Just give us
okay, well,
evidence.
my best evidence. My best evidence is that I lost all of my possessions in Oregon. I was homeless for all of 45 seconds. I prayed. A man walked up to me and handed me a sleeping bag. I walked down the street. I ran into a man in the park who was having a homeless rights demonstration in the middle of Ashland, Oregon. Nowhere to me. The entire town came out and fed me. I ran into a stranger, again, that same day, who housed me, clothed me, and we both had a mutual understanding of the goodness of God and the word of Jesus Christ. And we shared that.
So
in
you have
joy
evidence that
and in
people are
happiness.
nice.
And if and that's the thing, is that I don't require any more evidence than that. That's enough for me.
So if all those
that
people
believe
did
what
those
I
nice
believe,
things and talked to you about Roland the
they
Closet
give-
Goblin,
they
you'd be
give
here
out
believing in
kindness.
Roland the Closet Goblin
They
then.
give
So
if
let's
if the followers of Roland the Closet Goblin were the ones who answered all of my misgivings, then I would have a course to consider him. Yeah.
all right, Nicholas.
That's insane.
Nicholas, I'm not entirely convinced that you're being genuine, but I'm gonna be charitable and let's tug on this string a little bit. So
Okay.
evidence is anything that can be used to demonstrate that a claim is true. Okay. And when I say true, I'm talking about something being consistent with reality. All right. Just so that we've got a couple terms on the table. So if somebody comes up to you when you are in a vulnerable moment and gives you a sleeping bag, what is that evidence of?
That is evidence to me that God is looking out for me, and he sent that man to hand me a sleeping bag.
Okay, so how do you get from guy gives you sleeping bag to guy gives you sleeping bag because of a God?
God gives me sleeping bag because in book it say, if I hungry, I eat. If I naked, I get clothes. That's as simple
Okay,
as it
so-
is.
But it doesn't
Follow-up
say that.
question.
Your book does not say that. First of all, if you're referring to the Bible, okay,
Yeah,
no, it does not.
Yeah, it does. God cares for the flowers and the birds, and he makes sure that they are fed and clothed and all this other stuff. No, what is it? Do not worry.
I'll tell you from memory, do not be anxious about anything, but through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I've read the fucking book, guy. All right? You're not going to be able to bullshit me about what the book says. All right? So here's the deal. Guy gives you sleeping bag. Is it possible for a guy to give somebody a sleeping bag and for it to be just because a guy was trying to help out somebody who they saw who they thought was in need? Is that possible?
Is that it? Is that it? I'm sorry, I'm going to beep on the phone end. They're not mutually exclusive. They can both be true. He could be, and I mean, I've been
That is
treated very well
correct.
by Satanists, by atheists.
Sure.
God
So-
can still send them. Yeah.
If it is possible for somebody to give you a sleeping bag and for it to not have anything to do with the God watching out for you, then how can it be evidence that the God is watching out for you?
I'm unconcerned with that. It just is.
Well, and
So then
thank
you
you
don't
for admitting
care.
this, because this is the deal. And this is why at the very beginning of the call, I asked you if you care about whether or not the things you believe are true. You acted like you did, but it is very, very clear at this point that you don't. In some areas of your life, I'm sure you do. I'm sure, you look both ways before you cross the street. But with respect to your God belief, You very clearly do not care about whether your beliefs are true.
I really wish you knew me, man.
Well, here's what I know. I know
What
that
would
you're
that
willing
do?
to make claims about reality and not care about whether or not those claims are consistent with reality.
Like you're talking about somebody gave you a sleeping bag, therefore God must be real. What about all the people
Yeah.
who don't get that and die on the street? Like a child dies of starvation every 10 seconds. Is that all proof that God isn't real because nobody
Yeah.
gave them food? Like,
Dude, go to
you're
Los
using-
Angeles and look at all the folks on Skid Row who would love a sleeping bag and who are praying their asses
Seriously.
off, hoping someone will help them, and it's not happening.
And I guarantee there's double-digit churches within walking distance of where they're dying. So, like, you have a million counter evidences for what you're talking about, and that's why we don't use anecdotal evidence, because it's ridiculous. It's nonsense. You already admitted that if these people believed in a goblin in the closet, you would consider it. You've said several times that evidence doesn't matter because faith is what's important. Lots of people have faith in lots of things. It doesn't make them true. If I believe something that you believe is wrong, we both have faith, we both have a reason for believing it. How are we going to determine which one of us is right? How are we going to, if I say every single thing that you said today, I was homeless, I was starving, I was destitute, and a guy came up to me and said, hey man, Roll in the Closet Goblin spoke to me today and told me to give you this, and do I now believe it? If I say that I was possessed by the attic gnomes that are the enemies of the closet goblin, as I was 6 years old, I met a bunch of people who were possessed by the attic gnomes. Does that make it real? If I tell you that I had the courage and the strength because I read a book about the goblins once, does that make it real? Or can we say we need to test this and see if there's any actual evidence for it, any actual tangible reason that we can all believe in that matters? Or do you just believe it because you want to believe it because you want to believe it because you want to believe it?
Well, there's a 2,000-year-old book that has been passed down from generation to generation.
The Bhagavad Gita is older.
Is based off of.
So
the Bhagavad Gita is older than the
culture is
Bible.
not based on that book.
Does
what does the age of a book have to do with whether the contents of the book are true?
Well, God defends His word, and that word exists throughout time. Truth.
The Bhagavad Gita is one of the Vedas of Hinduism. It is older than the Bible. Does that make it more true?
I'm really trying to just make it super easy for you. Because the question is so obvious. What does the age of a book have to do with whether or not the contents of the book are true?
Our society has based the entirety of our ethics upon this book.
So do you think that response answers the question?
Understand.
Do you think that the response that you just gave, do you think that the response that you're giving here is in any way an answer to the question that I asked?
Why do you?
Because I would like to have honest conversations with people. I still think that it's possible to have an honest conversation with you. But if I'm going to ask you a question like a really simple question, like what does the age of a book have to do with whether its contents are true? Like you've got to be able to just be honest with your answers. Let's use the tools of reason to try to figure out what's real.
Let me repeat the question and I'll answer. Okay. What does the age of a book have to do with whether or not it is true? It does not directly have anything to do with whether or not it is true.
Does it indirectly?
I would expect that if God had spoken to man, that he would have given evidence to people to be able to hear his word. So I would expect that book to exist and to be old. So
why
what about the older religions with older books?
I think that there's elements of truth to them, right? It's like seeing a tree, but like seeing the leaves, like an elephant, but seeing the tail or the trunk or whatever. I think that Christ.
What about newer religions with newer books?
They are trying to obfuscate the truth of Christianity. For instance, Islam, the whole point of Islam is to say Jesus ascended into heaven and did not die on the cross. and did not raise
So,
on the third
quick,
day because they
if
are
the older
moron-
religions, excuse me, if the older religions are just a glimpse at the truth and the newer religions are obfuscating the truth, how do you know that at exactly 2,000 years ago, we had the focus just in where we got exactly and only the whole truth just this one time, and everything before it and everything after it sucks?
Well, that sucks. It holds different elements. But
Doesn't matter. How do you know that this is the right one?
Yeah, that's the question. Why should anybody think that the book that you've picked is the right one?
Well, truth is true, right? I know that's a silly thing to say. Truth is true. So, truth would be the root of any religion. If you can discern whether or not a thing is true by both its utility and
Nope.
it,
We already covered that. You can't discern that it's true because of its utility.
Yeah. Beliefs being useful has nothing to do with whether beliefs are true.
I do know it's true. I know it's true. Because
How?
I know that I know that everybody is not perfect. There is no perfect person. I know that there is.
That's why Roland heals them.
Yeah. So I know that nobody's perfect, and I got to work it again and again until I get it right. But
there's lots of books that say that. There's lots of books that say that nobody's perfect. So why again, we're no closer to a reason to think that your book of choice is, frankly, a magic book that comes from a god.
Jesus is the only one that allows us to be perfect. He gives us a cheat sheet. He gives us redemption. None of
these are just claims, though. These are claims in the book. These are just claims that are in the book.
Other religions have made the same claims.
So I'll give you one more try to present something like an argument or evidence, because all you're doing is just laying claims on the table. So do you have anything that can be used to substantiate any of these claims?
The evidence that was overwhelming to me is the apostles dying for their beliefs.
Which ones?
They, Bartholomew, Thomas.
How do you know those guys died for their beliefs?
There's significant evidence in Roman and other texts.
Like what?
Infographics actually does a pretty good. Infographs does a pretty good little bit on it. If you guys want to ever look up the evidence of Jesus Christ and the evidence of the martyrs.
Okay, so
what about the?
There's more documentation on.
I want to let him do this. So
on the Gaul.
You've got a claim now about martyrs. Okay, so even if I grant to you, first of all, okay, I'll just do this. I'll grant to you that there are people throughout history who have died because they believed Christianity. That as a direct consequence of their belief, they laid down their lives. Does that have anything to do with whether their beliefs are true?
In the day with Jesus, and they all laid down their lives for it, is pretty remarkable. If they,
all I'm saying. So what about the
You're getting out ahead of me.
Bombers now?
I was going to go right there.
Does that make Islam clue?
Yeah, because you can find examples of people who are willing to die for their beliefs. But does that have anything to do with whether or not their beliefs are true?
Yeah. But these guys are the root of it. These guys were
Answer the question. Answer the question. Answer the question. Does people being willing to die for their beliefs have anything to do with whether their beliefs are true?
It has to do with whether they really truly believe that.
That's a yes or a no.
Yeah. So
they would not. No, it doesn't. But it is remarkable.
No, it doesn't. Period.
Somebody would die for their beliefs when they are talking about a person that they physically saw.
How do you know what they physically saw?
You can't. I mean, they lived in his time. Like, yeah, I give these things for somewhat granted, but they
What about what's his name? Satya Sai Baba, isn't his name? Where like millions of people come to his birthday party every year. They say that he's performed miracles. He's a dude living in India right now. They say that he's raised the dead and walked on water and done all these amazing things. I bet you some of those people would lay down their lives for him. Is he actually the Messiah? He's alive today and he's in India, and people claim that he does all these amazing things and would surely die for him today. Does that make his claims true?
He's not the Messiah.
How do you know?
Yeah.
People will die for
Nicholas,
him. People believe in it. It gives them great utility. That gives them meaning to their life.
Because this call isn't going anywhere, I'm gonna drop it. Nicholas, like we just went in circles with you for a half an hour, guy. And if you go back and watch this call, I mean, for us to get anywhere with these calls, people have to be willing to engage honestly. So, Nicholas, I would urge you to go back and look at how many times we asked you questions and you just went somewhere else because the question was difficult for you or it made you uncomfortable or was pointing towards there being a flaw in your reasoning here. Forrest and I both are people who will follow the evidence to conclusions. If you could show us evidence that any of the stuff that you believe is true, we would have to come with you. We wouldn't really have a choice. Over it. That's it. And that's all it would take. But a guy gave me a sleeping bag is not good evidence because there are people from multiple religions who are out doing outreach as we speak, giving sleeping bags to people.
Man, the largest soup kitchen in the planet run by the Sikhs.
And they believe different shit than you. And those beliefs give their lives purpose and meaning, and they feel really good and all the stuff that you have. But warm, fuzzy feelings and for the Bible tells me so are not good reasons to believe stuff.